Hello potential friends, welcome back to the Vlogging Nook with me, Alexandra. I went to see Star Wars The Last Jedi, and I want to talk about the fact that this is the most divided people have been on a Star Wars film in possibly ever. People either loved The Last Jedi or they viciously hated it. So I want to talk about what made this movie great and why when I walked out of the theater and thought about it for longer than, 20 seconds, I realized a lot of things didn't add up, story-wise. Spoilers ahead, obviously. Positive stuff first, and when I discuss negative things, I'm going to try and say how it could have been fixed. But, just letting you know, this is my opinion. I have no credentials. Also, Editing Alexander will be popping up as a voiceover periodically to clarify things or add stuff I forgot during filming. There's a lot. Time for some positivity, so if you want to skip the positivity because you hated this film, that's fair. Just go to this time in the video. Just for a sneak peek of some of the things that I didn't like that I would fix if I had written it. There's Poe and Holdo, Finn and Rose's storyline, Luke Skywalker. We'll get to that though. Positivity first. Seeing a Star Wars movie on opening night was something I've never done, and that was super exciting. Seeing the Star Wars logo go BAM up on the thing, everyone in the theater applauded. I was thrilled out of my mind. I was sitting in that theater for 2.5 hours. Long-ass movie. Never felt like it was too long. I was riveted, the entire time. The visuals were stunning. I mean, we knew watching the trailer that there was going to be some spectacular visuals with that salt plain with the red earth underneath. That was so visually stunning. I mean, it's Star Wars. It's always going to be visually amazing, but it really knocked it out of the park in terms of the cinematography. There was a couple super standout moments where I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. When Admiral Holdo turned that battle cruiser around, when she punched the battle cruiser at light speed through the ship chasing them, that was so... The fact that it went dead silent, that shot on the screen, poof, the dead silence of you seeing the ship come apart. I was holding back a scream of love and vindication so hard. I wanted to be like, yes! Yeah! But I didn't want to disturb the absolute silence of that moment. It was spectacular. Using it as a battering ram, but at light speed. Iconic. Anyway, that was great. I'm almost crying. Obviously, Luke just throwing the damn lightsaber over his shoulder. I leaned over to the person I was there with while he was holding the lightsaber, and I was like, wouldn't it be funny if he was just yeet? Literally 2 seconds later, he did it, and I was like... The other absolutely iconic moment that I can think of is, obviously, when Luke Skywalker walks out of the hole that's been punched in that big metal door. He walks out by himself. Kylo Ren sees him, and he loses his shit. And he's like, point every gun at that man! They fire for 30 full seconds. All the guns. Red smoke going everywhere. And Hux is like, you think you hit him? And then the smoke clears a little bit. Stepping out. Luke Skywalker. Looking fucking great. Perfect. And just I'm not joking. The audience applauded. I applauded. I couldn't help it. I was like, Luke! Iconic! Just walks out of the dust can't do nothing to me. I'm Luke Skywalker. You think all your guns can do anything to me? Huh. Nope. Ugh! Drama queen. Also the fact that his astral projection was wearing a new outfit that was pristine. I was like, that is Padme's son right there. They cut to him on the island just focusing so hard. I was like, Luke! I love him! Yep! Okay, that was great. Again, I'm too excited. I love Star Wars, y'all. Other things that I loved. New characters. Rose. I would die for her. I love her. I will talk more about her later. probably...
I don't manage to say it coherently anywhere, really, so I'll say it here. Rose was the new character I was looking forward to the most going into the movie, and she did not disappoint. I love her bravery, her dedication, her fierceness, her softness, and her immense capacity for love.
And honestly, Paige, her sister, who stole my heart in her 30 seconds of screen time, I know it sucks that she died, like, right away, and we didn't get to see her and Rose together in any way, but that death scene was so good. Like, the close-up on her face, her struggle, she's, like, kicking the thing, she's like, get that to come down, she knew what she was doing, she was sacrificing for the resistance, and when she, like, holds the necklace and you know what it means to her later when you see Rose has it, and you're like, oh god, my emotions! Anyway, Paige was great. I would watch an entire movie just about Paige and Rose. Holdo, obviously, who had amazing hair, and as I said earlier, pulled off one of the sickest moves I've ever seen anybody do. Light speed. Yes! Love it. Since we're talking about new characters, this isn't positive, but I might as well say it. I do not give two shits about DJ. I'm sorry, like, could not fucking care less. Porgs were fine. Not sure why people hate them so much. Porgs actually were invented because that island they were filming on was covered in puffins, and they were like, ugh, we could delete all of these puffins in post, or we could just make them into a Star Wars creature, which we could then use to sell toys. So that's how porgs were invented. I think they weren't in the movie too much, so they weren't, like, oversaturated. I think they were fine. Cute. Porgs. Love it. Other thing I like, Leia spacewalk. Everybody hates it, apparently. Not me, bitch. That was great. Seeing Leia get to use the Force, and more than that, use the Force in a way we had never seen before, in like an instinctive, life-saving way. The casino storyline. Everybody hates this storyline, apparently. And I don't. I fucking love that we get Rose Tico saying that great thing where Finn's like, hey, this place is, like, pretty and stuff. It looks nice and cool and shiny here. And Rose is like, yeah, these people have this great life because they're profiting off of these innocent animals, they're profiting off slaves, and they're selling weapons to an organization that is subjugating the galaxy. That's why these people are rich. And she has that great thing where she's like, I look at this beautiful place and I just want to punch a hole through it. And I was like, I would die twice for you. Like, I'm sorry. Queen of the Resistance. That was a great moment. Especially since that storyline is two characters of color. Being like, fuck the establishment, basically. There are issues I do have with the Casino Bite storyline, which is that I'm fine with them stampeding those animals through the casino. Fuck the rich people.
But their whole path of destruction later through the streets and whatnot got a bit too much and felt unnecessary. And a lot of the plot with DJ felt way too convenient and cliche as well, with him being in their cell and showing up in the nick of time with an escape, BB-8 also bringing some Deus Ex Machina droid vibes. There were great character moments and anti-fascist themes in this storyline, but it felt like it got a little bit lost in the cartoon chase of it all at the end.
Another thing that's positive is that I did like the humor in this. I'm sorry. Poe stalling Hux by being like, yeah, I'm holding for General Hux, and Hux being like, I am General Hux, and Poe being like, yeah, still holding for Hux? Just wondering when I can talk to him, because General Leia has a really important message, and Hux is like, the disrespect. This whole movie was just about disrespecting Hux, and I'm here for it. Fuck that guy. Another thing that I liked, which I was very wary of in the moment, is Rey and Kylo. Now, before I talk about Rey and Kylo and what I liked about their storyline, I'm going to quote something that I answered on a Tumblr post the day before I saw TLJ. Okay. Someone asked me, curious what your thoughts are on Reylo. I wrote an answer basically being like, I'm not crazy about Reylo. And I would like to quote this bit that I said at the end. If Rey and Kylo Ren are developed in The Last Jedi to the point where shipping them makes sense, I'll shrug and be mildly disappointed at the lack of creativity in following the plotline of tortured man is saved by the love of a good woman. But I won't scream and tear my hair out or anything. Well, I guess. That was me during the first 2/3 of the movie about Rey and Kylo. I was sitting there watching it and I was like, bored with this, like literally bored. When are we getting back to Finn and Rose? I really want to go see the movie again, because now I'll be able to view that whole bit, knowing what happens later, with so much more enthusiasm. Because what I thought they were doing, they completely subverted it. So looking back, that storyline is actually really interesting.
I ain't gonna sit here and act like they weren't building up a romance throughout that first little bit. Like, the Force Bond Skype thing literally sounds like it was pulled from a Reylo fanfic, and there was that deeply dramatic tensiony hand touch. And of course, Kylo Ren turning around and being just like,
titties out. Everyone's freaking out about, like, Adam Driver shirtless, but I have to say, guys, those high-waisted pants were not flattering. They were not. It looked like his pants were swallowing him. Help me. Like, I mean, yeah, titties out, I guess.
And I did actually genuinely enjoy
their battle together, where they were working together. That was some great, like, choreography. That was some great, like, force instincts going off of each other. When he's stuck and she throws him her lightsaber and he just goes through the head of the guy behind him. A good moment.
But if I could see and acknowledge the romantic implications of that stuff, why was I not won over by the ship, you ask?
I'm really sick of stories where a man's redemption is put on a woman's shoulders, basically. And it often reduces the woman's storyline, and it's really lazy writing.
Not to mention that the prevalence of narratives in media where a violent man can be changed if a woman just loves and believes in him are worrying when you look at domestic abuse statistics. In The Force Awakens, Kylo and Rey were just enemies in a war with no romantic relationship on the horizon, so while interactions like the torture scene were disturbing, it wouldn't be called abuse. However, The Last Jedi basically first steered them into a burgeoning romantic connection, then showed that Kylo Ren truly was not ready to change, and finally allowed Rey to choose herself instead of pursuing a relationship clearly turning abusive. That's what I mean when I say they subverted it. Their storyline became a commentary on abusive dynamics and showed a woman trusting herself and rising beyond a man's emotional manipulation instead of buying into it, which was great. But where was the moment where the movie flipped from following a predictable, boring redemption romance storyline into this interesting commentary? What do I mean by Kylo showing he wasn't ready to change? What emotional manipulation? Let's look at the throne room scene.
He kills Snoke. They kill everyone in the room. They're looking at each other. It's the deciding moment. What happened then was that Kylo Ren proved that he is still a villain, that he is more of a villain than before even. She reached out to him because she thought through him, that was how the Resistance would triumph, basically. She gave up on Luke and thought, I'm going to put all my faith in Kylo as a possibility to save the Resistance, to save the galaxy, because Rey is a good fucking person. She wants to save lives, not fucking murder people. He has the opportunity to join her. And instead of stepping away from literal fascism and subjugating the entire galaxy, he wants her to join him. And that moment where she looks at him and she's like, I think she says something like, don't go out like this, or like, don't do this. And I'm like, that is a woman realizing this man does not care about me, and that he does not care about what I stand for. He does not respect me. Then that's the moment where she's like, connection, shimection. Okay? I fucking tried. And that moment where he tells her that her parents were nobody, and then he literally says,
you come from nothing, you're nothing.
And then he says, but not to me. Shit, that is textbook manipulation. I've seen people saying that's a romantic thing, and that drives me insane, because that is a hallmark sign of abuse. Listen, if someone tells you you're nothing except to me, they're lying, and they're lying because they want to keep you with them, and they want to isolate you from other people. And that's wrong. Rey knew it was wrong, and instead of accepting that manipulation, she thought to herself, no, I'm not nothing. I'm not nothing. Doesn't matter who my parents were. I'm not nobody. Fuck you, Kylo Ren. I'm gonna try and take the lightsaber, and when it blares in half, I'm gonna escape. Fuck you. If you want them to get together after that shit he pulled on her, I don't know what to say to you. Do you hate Rey? Anyway, I'm really excited to see the movie again, because I'll be able to look at their interactions without being annoyed, because I think I know where it's going. Kylo Ren is not gonna get off easy. He is going to get slam dunked into the fucking ground and rejected!
Just a quick rant here. I literally saw a post feeling sorry for Kylo after Rey rejected the oh-so-generous offer to be part of the First Order with him, and the post was like, oh man, once he hears her talking about them going back to the Resistance, he realized she didn't do this all for him, but just for the Resistance. He realized she was using him, and that must have hurt so much, and yet he still offered her everything. Oh my god, Reylo, I'm in pain. And I was like, how do you misunderstand something so badly? Like, this isn't a rom-com where the weird unpopular punk boy at school starts working together with a girl from the preppy kid side and then finds out she was only talking to him because her prep friends needed to get someone older to buy them booze. Kylo Ren is not a victim in his relationship with Rey in any way. How could your takeaway from that scene be to feel sorry for the mass murderer who is not offering Rey anything except for proof that he is nothing like her, that their values are completely different, and that this whole time when she thought she was connecting with someone who was capable of realizing what he'd done wrong and trying to make amends, instead she was being sucked into the poisonous vortex of self-hatred and evil that had claimed him. Here's what makes Kylo's offer to Rey so revealing of his true character. He has nothing holding him back anymore. There's no more Snoke holding him to his position as a Dark Apprentice. There's no more Red Cloak guards, and in this movie, there's no Knights of Ren. There's just him and Rey, and he chooses to replace Snoke as Supreme Leader instead of following Rey back into the light and ceasing to be a mass-murdering dictator. He actively chooses evil, and it's a character-establishing moment that sets him apart from the wannabe Vader he used to be, and makes him a much better and more compelling and complex villain. Rey and Kylo's storyline in this movie isn't a romantic one, because in this so-called proposal scene, as I've seen Reylo shippers put it, Rey realizes that Ben, which was who she thought she was connecting to, has already been devoured by Kylo Ren. Yes, they both have dark and light in them, but the Force is something defined by the way you choose to use it. Kylo Ren chooses evil. Rey chooses good. I did have some things to say about Snoke, but I've realized I really honestly don't care about him. Kinda sucks that his character amounted to literally nothing, but also the only part of him that interested me was where his character affected Luke and Kylo.
I mean, I'm guessing that super manipulative thing that Kylo said to Rey is probably indicative of something that Snoke said to him. Snoke in his mind being like, Luke doesn't love you. Luke thinks you're weak. I think you're strong. I think you're so strong. Must have done something awful to him, but we never got to find out what that was. So, yeah. It would have given more emotion, I guess, to the moment when Kylo kills him.
But honestly, I'm glad he's dead and out of the way, even if everyone's cool theories about him are now wasted.
But going off of Rey and Kylo's storyline, there was one huge thing about that goes straight into my negative stuff. And that is, of course, Luke Skywalker's characterization. So, watching this film, I actually did not disagree with Luke in the whole "the Jedi must end" thing, because when he was like, yeah, Darth Sidious came into power while the Jedi were, like, just chillin', he was completely right. That's very true. And in fact, a lot of the Jedi teachings kind of suck. Remember that time when Yoda in, like, the prequels said,
"Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering." Which is a stupid simplification. It's just a dumb fucking thing to say to Anakin, who was a literal child who used to be a slave and was training to be a child soldier.
Yoda, you fool. You don't need to be dispassionate about everything to be a good person. What the fuck, Yoda? So I didn't disagree with Luke's whole, like, Jedi should end, like, I don't want to train any new Jedis, like, leave me alone, I want to be a grumpy old man. But while watching the film, there was one moment where I just was completely knocked out of the film with, like, a visceral feeling of, no, that's wrong. That was when Kylo Ren tells Rey that Luke tried to kill him in his sleep, and we see that flashback of Luke with the lightsaber above him. No. Luke would not do that. I knew that with every fiber of my being. Luke would not try to murder his nephew in his sleep. And I still didn't buy it later on when Luke explains his side and says, for a brief second, I just buzzed up my lightsaber and then I immediately unbuzzed it because I was like, oh no, how could I think of that? No, Luke would not entertain murdering his nephew for a fucking second. I'm sorry. He would not. And that is a huge part of the Rey and Kylo storyline, because that is why Rey starts to sympathize with him, is she's like, oh, this is a guy who's been abandoned by his family, basically. This guy is somewhat like me. But what it does is it destroys Luke. The only reason to do that was to increase sympathy for Kylo Ren, which is strange considering that later on in the movie they reaffirm that Kylo Ren is in fact just a huge fucking douche canoe Also, it retcons some things from The Force Awakens, because in The Force Awakens flashback, we see Kylo Ren in full costume, full Kylo costume, standing with the Knights of Ren behind him in, like, the rubble of the Jedi training camp or whatever. What happened to the Knights of Ren? I'm sorry, did they just forget they existed? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And you know what? Mark Hamill didn't buy it either. There was literally an article, I think it was with the Vanity Fair, where Mark Hamill said that at one point he went up to Rian Johnson and said, listen, I fundamentally disagree with every decision you've made about my character. If Mark Hamill tells you your Luke Skywalker characterization is bad, maybe it's bad. But here's how that scene could have been fixed. I saw a great post that pointed out that when Luke is tempted by the dark side into, like, violence and stuff, it's because he wants to protect something. That's what we saw in, like, the original trilogy. And if he sensed all of this darkness in Kylo's mind, yeah, he'd feel shame that he, like, let it happen. Yeah, he'd feel scared that, like, this could take everything away from him. But Ben is one of the things he doesn't want taken away from him, because Ben is his nephew, and he loves Ben. And Ben is different than Vader in that he didn't know Vader for years and years and develop a working relationship with him the way he had with Ben. If Luke sensed that darkness in him and sensed that Snoke had already reached him, Luke would have turned that anger on Snoke, not on Ben. So, if what we need for this film to work is we need Kylo to feel as though he's been abandoned by his family, to have a reason to go on a mass murdering spree. I can't believe I said a reason for that. God, a reason in his mind to go on a mass murdering spree and to run away with Snoke. And we don't want to ruin Luke's character. Luke confronts Kylo, asks him about Snoke. Luke tries to get out of him, like, has someone been talking to you? Has someone been poisoning your mind? And Ben gets scared and defensive, and he likes Snoke. He said, maybe the dark side isn't so bad. And then Luke's like, the dark side is definitely bad. I have experience with this. And maybe Luke steps toward Ben in a way that he meant to be like, come with me, we can fight Snoke together. But Ben feels threatened. Ben powers up his lightsaber. Luke powers up his lightsaber. Ben freaks out. He's young. He's volatile. He brings the roof down on Luke in one fell swoop. Maybe he didn't mean to at first. He panics. But, you say, if that's what happened, how can Kylo be like, oh, he tried to kill me in the middle of the night? Snoke rewrote his memory. Who's to say? He can't, I'm sorry, Snoke can reach across space and time to poison Ben's mind while he's training under Luke. Who's to say he wouldn't be able to poison it a little further just to say, no, that's not what happened. He tried to kill you, don't you remember? He tried to kill you. You need to come to me now. You need to leave because he tried to kill you. And then that is what Kylo Ren remembers. That would work so well, doesn't assassinate Luke's character, makes it so Ben still has a reason to connect with Rey. Then the whole storyline would work. And then when Rey goes, she, like, puts herself in a box and mails herself to her boyfriend. Then Rey in the elevator could be like, Luke told me the truth. He didn't try to kill you. Snoke did this to you. Snoke made you think that. And then it provides more of a reason for Kylo to kill Snoke. Because then when he kills Snoke, we as the audience member will think, oh my god, he believes Rey. He believes that his uncle didn't try to murder him. And then when it turns out that he just killed Snoke because he wants Rey to rule with him, then it's even more upsetting in the moment.
Because it would even further illustrate that Kylo's excuse of his family's abandonment being the reason for his current evil is just that, an excuse. It would show that either he doesn't believe Rey and just wants her on his side, or that even if he believes her, the truth doesn't matter anymore because he's too far gone into the dark side.
There we go. That's how I would fix that. Oh, and I just want to say, Mark Hamill's acting, awesome.
I'll throw it in now, even though this is neither positive or negative. Rey's parentage. Honestly, this is what I thought they were going to do from the start, because it seemed too obvious for her to be a Skywalker. I don't like that leaves us with no positive Skywalker legacy, since Kylo Ren is a heaping dumpster on fire, and definitely ain't going to be getting any redemption unless it's right before his death after the shit he pulled on Rey in this movie. But I expected they were going to make Rey not have a direct parental connection to the plot, even if I felt like it was kind of the wrong move to do. Maybe not a Skywalker, but some familiar tie to the original trilogy would have been nice. I do, however, like the idea that she needs to stop relying on her parents as the be-all and end-all of her identity, and that she learns throughout the movie and gains more self-confidence.
Now I wanted to get into a couple of other storylines that bothered me. Let's start with Holdo and Poe. This was a deeply, deeply frustrating storyline. Yes, it was engaging in the moment to be like, oh my god, Poe's right, like mutiny time, and then be like, oh wait, Admiral Holdo's actually super great, and I love her, and she's doing her light speed trick. But as soon as you think about that for more than 10 seconds, it makes no sense. I understand why she didn't tell him what was going on the first time he asked. Because she'd heard that he was like a hotshot or whatever, and that he'd been recently demoted, and she's like, you know what, I'm the Admiral, he needs to learn to, like, listen or whatever, and I don't need to tell him shit. Fine.
Well, it's actually not fine, because he indicated from the beginning that he was ready to take her orders. He just wanted to know the plan, and instead she decided to make him feel like a child, which made him not trust her, even though there was literally no reason for the plan to be a secret from lower officers, and in fact it made more sense for everyone to know so that everyone could pitch in a hand during this dangerous and necessary evacuation.
But the second a literal mutiny is happening and there are guns on her, she would explain herself. I'm sorry, she's not that stupid. I get that they wanted this whole dramatic storyline for Poe so that he wasn't wasted. But you can still have a good storyline and not make both of them look like idiots in the process. Here's how that could have been fixed to make sense. It's real fucking simple. The second guns are pulled on her, Holdo is like, okay, you know what? Didn't tell you before, but here's my plan with the transports. Disappointed you didn't listen to me the first time. I'm Admiral Holdo and I have purple hair. And then Poe has his, oh shit, that could work moment. And then he realizes, oh shit, I sent Finn and Rose and BB-8, my droid whomst I love, on a pointless mission. So he's like, listen, Holdo, like, I know I told you about my plan, you said it was dumb, but like, please, seriously, they're out there, just give me a little bit longer to let this happen. She's like, no, fuck you. So Poe goes on the comlink and is like, stop Finn, my dude. Yeah, abort. We're doing this transport thing. Yeah, I think it's dumb, but like, you guys need to get out of there. But Finn and Rose, you know, they've come too far. And they want to see this through. They argue on the comlink, and eventually Finn is just like, you know what, Poe, we can do this. We're going to do this. And you have to be on that cruiser when I radio back, when we get into that hyperspace tracking area, so you can make the jump. You've got to be there. And then he just cuts off the thing. And it's a callback to that moment when, in the beginning, Poe didn't listen to Leia. And now he knows the fear and the difficulties of leadership when you are not on the front line. Because he put those people out there, basically. And now they're not listening to him.
So Poe goes to Holdo and explains the situation and insists on staying on the cruiser in case Finn and Rose can do it.
And Holdo's finally like, okay, you've got a spot on the last transport going out, so you've only got until then for them to radio back. And Finn radios as they get into that room with the hyperspace tracking, and then Poe hears them get caught. And he still has that moment where he realizes they didn't make it. And he... It's so upsetting. And in this, like, wave of shock that his friends are probably dead, he says, you know, I'm not going on the transports. I'm going to stay with you, and I'm going to go down with the ship. And that's when Leia has her dramatic entrance, knocks him out, puts him on the transport to save his life, and then has her dramatic ass goodbye with Holdo. Yes, this storyline still includes a lot of slapping Poe, knocking Poe out, being rude to Poe, which I don't like. I love Poe. But still gets you that drama, and it fixes the fact that it doesn't make sense that Holdo would not tell them about it when he's literally causing a mutiny, okay? Speaking of Finn and Rose's storyline. Segue. I said I didn't have a problem with the casino storyline, and I don't. What I do have an issue with is what happened when they were on the enemy ship, basically. And the fact that ultimately their storyline had no effect on the plot as a whole. Didn't forward the storyline, except for that little scene at the end, which I will talk about. It didn't advance anyone's storyline other than their own, and it didn't have consequences for anyone else. And that's dumb as shit.
I mean, Finn is the male protagonist of this trilogy. He's not an inconsequential side character. He's the first character we were introduced to in this new trilogy in the trailer for The Force Awakens. Him being a stormtrooper who rebelled makes him have the most original origin story of any of the new characters. It's disrespectful to push him aside.
See, maybe it's going to come up in the final movie, but really it should have come up in this movie as well. This movie completely wasted Finn's past and Finn's character, in that Finn is a brainwashed stormtrooper who was stolen from his family at a young age and then raised in this incredibly horrible environment, and he didn't have time to, like, think about what he'd escaped, really, in the first movie, you know. The escape was the drive of it, and then, oh no, my first friend, has been kidnapped. I have to save her. That was, like, his drive through the first movie, right? He's still focused on saving Rey and whatnot, but
in The Last Jedi, his storyline centers on him going on a mission for the Resistance with Rose that gives him a chance to think about the bigger picture more than he could in The Force Awakens. The bigger picture, including his role in this resistance itself.
Regarding Finn's past as a stormtrooper, the fact that Finn has never flinched while killing a stormtrooper, has never shown any, like, trepidation about that, is really disturbing to me, that they haven't let his character humanize other stormtroopers. Which is dumb, considering he grew up among them, and he, of all people, would not see them as faceless. He knows that there are people underneath them, people who could be like him. And again, Phasma was goddamn useless for, like, the 30 seconds that she showed up. She was the worst again. What is the point of her other than to look cool? So dumb.
I mean, seeing Finn defeat one of the figures who ruled over and abused and brainwashed him is obviously fucking great, as was him telling her he is rebel scum now, fully throwing his lot in with the Resistance, but I still think the movies have never properly handled the emotional potential of those fights, and instead has made Phasma seem pretty pathetic.
Also, Finn should have had conflicted feelings about going undercover as an officer of the First Order, dressed as that, on a ship that was like one of the ones he escaped, surrounded by other stormtroopers. He should have had some sort of reaction to that. Imagine how great it would have been if, in his conversation with, like, Rose in the casino, is if maybe she got to tell a story about Paige, about how Paige taught her what a hero was, I don't know, through something Paige did when they were kids or whatnot, and Rose, who knows about Finn being a stormtrooper, that's why she was like, "You're the Finn?" And Rose seems very intuitive, so it would make total sense if Rose was like, "Hey, how are you feeling about this mission, about having to go back there, basically?" And then, imagine, this is where I'm starting to rewrite, by the way, imagine Finn tells a brief story about when he was a younger stormtrooper, still, like, training and stuff.
According to a Force Awakens canonical tie-in novel called Before the Awakening, Finn grew up in a 4-man fire team in which his 3 teammates had the nicknames Nines, Zero, and Slip. Finn never got a nickname because even other stormtroopers saw him as an outsider. One of the things that made him not fit in, according to the book, was that he had too much compassion for his teammates, which is exactly what I'm saying should have been built upon in this movie. Other time material confirms that Slip and Nines are respectively the trooper who died at the beginning of The Force Awakens and the trooper who recognized and fought him later in that movie, which means Zero is feasibly still alive and out there. So maybe during his conversation with Rose, he tells a story about a memory of helping Zero in a training exercise.
And maybe there was a moment between them where, like, the other stormtrooper said thank you, and then they were both, like, punished for showing weakness and whatnot. But he remembers that as one of the early moments when he realized he, like, couldn't be part of it, but he fought it down until he had to be on that battlefield. Imagine we have that scene where he just humanizes stormtroopers for a second in his memories.
And he admits to Rose that he still looks at a stormtrooper helmet and sees himself there in their place. And that, yeah, it's hard to do this mission, but he has more to fight for now.
And then they're on the ship. They get caught. They get marched up in front of Hux, and you know what? I can't stand the fact that Hux slapped Finn, so I'm retconning that. My rewrite doesn't happen. Hux does a little speech, being like, "Oh, it's the dirty traitor. Oh, you suck. You couldn't do anything." And DJ has his little bit where he reveals his hypocrisy. Earlier, he was like, "It's just a business, you know. You sell to the good guys and the bad guys. It doesn't matter." Where he reveals that the hypocrisy of that because he literally leaves them to die, which, you know, anybody would know that's a bad thing to do. And then he skedaddles off. Fuck you, DJ. And Hux is like, "Okay, we're gonna, like, execute you and stuff." And then maybe Finn, while they were, like, getting kidnapped, while they were marched down the hallway, maybe Finn recognized one of the stormtroopers. I know their helmets aren't off. I know they all look the same. Bear with me for a fucking moment here. Maybe he thought he knew them by the way they walked, by their shoulders, by something. He thought, "I think I recognize them." And Hux is like, "You're gonna get fucking killed. Execution time." And they're in front of all these stormtroopers. And Finn speaks up. Finn addresses the other stormtroopers. Finn is like, "Yeah, that's right. I'm a traitor. I did what you guys can do, basically. You don't have to listen to this fucking orange-haired asshole. I know how you've been treated. I know how you've been taken from your families. Do you remember having families? If you don't, that's because they took it from you. Now I found a new family, and the Resistance, you guys don't have to do this." And he's doing this riveting ass speech, and you can see in like a little like ripples in the stormtroopers as they're kind of like shaken by hearing this. They're people, guys. We have to remember they're people. And Hux senses the crowd being unsettled. He raises his hand to slap Finn. And then the stormtrooper Finn thought he recognized before, and of course, it's the stormtrooper from the story when he was a kid. Stormtrooper he thought he recognized before stops Hux. Maybe to stop the slap, the stormtrooper who has their blade against Finn's neck just moves it, just steps back. Finn can sway backwards, avoid the slap. Hux is off balance. Finn gets to his feet. He fucking, like, I don't know, headbutts Hux. It's the best moment ever. I am screaming in the theaters. I am on my feet applauding. I love Finn so much. Hux stumbles backwards. Loyal troopers come around him to protect him. Some of the other stormtroopers are starting to split into factions. They're starting to battle amongst each other. Finn shares a moment of eye contact with the stormtrooper who saved him. He knows. He knows who it is. And then Phasma engages him in battle. And then that's more personal. Phasma and Finn's battle is still personal, no matter what, because she is directly his oppressor. But it becomes even more personal because now he has caused a revolution among her troops. And it's like fucking mayhem and shit. It's like disastrous. Hux escapes with his troops. The stormtroopers are like battling it out. It's all fucking nuts. And then Holdo's lightspeed ship goes through. And then everything is just like fucked and it's time for them to escape. And while this is happening, I've thought about this even more. See, here's the thing, is that Finn and Rey were on the same ship around the same time.
Finn and Rose are doing their secret mission, while off in a different part of the ship, Rey is trying to convince Ben to not be Kylo Ren.
Look, fine. Someone who's seen it 5 times is probably going to correct me and be like, this did not happen around the same time. Well, guess what? In my re-rate, it did. First of all, Finn and Rey did not get enough screen time. Yes, it was absolutely stunningly beautiful when they had that hug. The hug was the best moment of the entire film. But imagine, when Rey arrives on the ship, we have a moment, maybe when she's walking down the hallway with Ben, where she senses Finn. She senses that he's on the same ship as her. We just see her, like, turn back and maybe say his name once. And then she's, you know, herded on more because she's got to go meet Snoke. We don't see Rey's escape from that ship at all. We just know what happens. And then we see her later in the Millennium Falcon. There's this, like, gap. So in order to have Finn and Rose's storyline work out so that they affect her storyline, what if we see Rey, like, sneaking away from Snoke's throne room and she's trying to find, like, a ship. She's left Kylo Ren collapsed. She's freaking out. And she hides around a corner and there's too many stormtroopers. She can't get past them. She doesn't know what she's gonna do. How is she gonna get to the escape pods? Or whatever. I don't remember how they said she escaped. And then the stormtroopers get called away because they've been called to help quash the stormtrooper rebellion. And she is able to sneak by and escape. And then, sorry, that was so great, because then something Finn did would have helped Rey. They would have helped each other without even knowing. Beautiful. I love them. They are the best. So Finn and Rose escape.
Possibly with the help of some stormtroopers.
The stormtrooper rebellion is quashed in this moment, and there's like this thing where Hux is like, we have to make sure this doesn't get out. And that would be something that would come back in the next movie, where, like, it does get out and more rebellion is happening. And it would be great. I'm sorry, you don't make a stormtrooper a main character and then not have him inspire the rest of the stormtroopers to fucking revolt, because these are not clone troopers. These are stormtroopers. They are children stolen from their families. I'm sorry, I'm too hype about this storyline. I'm too hype about this. And then, even though their plot to disrupt the hyperspace tracking failed, they would still have a greater impact on the storyline as a whole by setting up possibly a stormtrooper rebellion becoming bigger in the next movie, and also by making it so Rey could escape the ship. And it would just make the storyline more interesting. And then fucking Hux wouldn't have put his goddamn hands on Finn. Hux is gonna meet these hands. Okay, for touching Finn. God, I swear I'm coming to the end of this. Speaking of Finn, let's talk Finn and Rose and Finn and Poe. Briefly. Okay. Finn and Rose's relationship could be easily read as platonic right up until the moment she kisses him. They had an amazing bond, instant connection, and, like, work together so great, and friendship is fucking magic, you know? So a choice was made to make that relationship be romantic. And here's the thing. Finn and Rose are fucking adorable. That's so good. That's so good. Like, honestly, if I knew there was 0 other options, I would be like, this is the best thing ever. Also, interracial relationship where neither party is a white person. That's great. That is not often shown in media and stuff. And also, Rose deserves good things in her life after her sister died. Being clear, I have nothing against Finn Rose itself, but that being said, let's get into the theories of why Finn Poe should have fucking happened instead. The thing that bugs me is that diversity in Star Wars has been going up with the newer movies. Like, we've had so many more characters of color and more women in bigger roles. But Star Wars gets a fucking failing grade in terms of LGBTQ people, okay? There's not a single canonically queer person in the movies. It don't count if it's not in the movies, because that is the mainstream thing that most people see. It's beyond time for Disney to put a queer character in the Star Wars films. Chirrut and Baze should have been a married couple. I've never seen people more married than them, but we're not getting into that. So, after The Force Awakens, fans latched onto Finn and Poe and thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if they got together? Neither of them have romantic storylines right now. I mean, it looks like Finn and Rey are going to be a thing, but you could read it as platonic, and it did turn out to be platonic. So why not have Finn and Poe get together?
Their relationship may have been just platonic in The Force Awakens, but with their first meeting of instant chemistry and camaraderie, combined with their dramatic hug and Poe giving him his jacket with that slightly sexual lip bite and the keep it suits you, it wouldn't have been a stretch to develop that relationship further into a romantic one, or just hint at the beginning of a romantic one in This Last Jedi. And there was no reason not to go down that avenue. The internet already supported it, it would have given Poe a more compelling overall arc, and Rose's character arc was mostly focused on her sister and recovering from that, so she didn't need a romantic storyline to be important to the plot, and I will fight anyone who suggests otherwise.
But the people in charge wanted to have their cake and eat it too. I'm going to read out to you a couple paragraphs from an article I read that just puts it really nicely, and I'll link it below. Let's break down the charges. Storm Pilot, which is the ship name for Finn and Poe as a romantic couple, is, first and foremost, an invention of the internet. It's something that, if Lucasfilms really wanted to, the people behind the film could ignore or dismiss by saying that this particular fan theory/interpretation is not part of the stories they want to tell with the new Star Wars movies, regardless of how big the Storm Pilot frenzy has gotten, which includes major coverage from sites like E! Online, BuzzFeed, Hypable, Vanity Fair, USA Today, Metro, Pink News, Comic Book Resources, The Mary Sue, Bleeding Cool, and Movie Pilot, among other outlets. If they had simply done this from the beginning, I don't think anyone would have their hopes or expectations set on seeing a broader scope of representation or anything startlingly progressive to come from this new series of films. However, Lucasfilm has failed to prevent its contractors, its stars, directors, producers, etc. from fanning the hopes and expectations of fans when it comes to not just Storm Pilot, but gay representation in general. Likely encouraged, at first, by how big of a splash the fanbase Storm Pilot made with the mainstream media, plus the realization of the extent that online fandom was driving the conversations surrounding the new Star Wars films, other members of the Star Wars family soon started sharing their 2 cents about Storm Pilot and wading into the larger discussion about the lack of gay representation of franchise as a whole.
See, they wanted our business, but they didn't take our desire for representation seriously. They saw, and still see, us as a joke, one that benefited them as long as they humored it, but one they had no intention of actually considering as a potential storyline. To be clear, I don't think the actors are queerbaiting when they've expressed support for it. I think the actors were and are pretty much all 100% down for it if the storyline had become a thing. But the frequency that Storm Pilot was brought up in interviews, often as a joking question, points to how the higher-ups didn't want to shut it down clearly and allowed their actors to fuel the conversation in hopes. Of course, it was much worse when directors or producers danced around it.
Literally, Rian Johnson retweeted a fan art of Finn and Poe kissing and Rey high-fiving Finn. And I later backtracked on it, being like, oh yeah, I just thought it was cute. I'm sorry if I got anyone's hopes up with that. Thanks, Ryan. Cool. I've never seen anyone representing me on screen in my favorite franchise, but thanks for apologizing that you got my hopes up.
And look, queer audiences aren't dumb. We're used to being queerbaited, and we knew Finn and Poe was never going to happen because Disney is too chicken shit for that. I wouldn't even be making a fuss about this if it weren't for one goddamn thing.
What makes me mad is that Ryan specifically said in an interview, when he was asked point blank, is there going to be LGBTQ representation in The Last Jedi? He said, there wasn't an opportunity for it. But there was. Here's how they could have made it fucking happen. Here's your goddamn opportunity, Ryan. So all the speeders are heading across the salt plains towards the big fucking cannon. And they've been told, like, you know, you gotta get back. We can't do this. Even Poe is decided. And he's like, Finn, we gotta go. We gotta pull back. Rose is like, Finn, we gotta pull back. Finn keeps going. I still think Rose would try and stop him. That's completely in character for her. She tries to stop him, but she's not close enough to do it. She's going to miss him. And as the audience, we've only seen Finn and Rose's ships, so we know Rose is trying to stop him, but we can see she's not going to make it. And then, out of the blue, Poe smashes into Finn's ship, smashes it aside. Rose follows, skids to a halt beside them. Finn gets out of his ship. He runs over to where Poe is bleeding. I don't remember the exact lines. They're probably on the screen right now because I'm using that comic. Finn runs over, he's like, why would you do that to Poe? And Poe's like, you weren't going to be able to destroy the cannon, like, just with your ship. You were just going to kill yourself. And I realized, then he kisses him, and then he collapses. And then Finn, confused, upset, looks to where Rose is standing next to them. And then Rose says the line, where she's like, I understand why, because it's about saving the things you love.
That's how we're gonna win. Not fighting what we hate. Saving what we love.
Rose helps carry wounded Poe back into the thing. I am literally sobbing in the theaters. It's beautiful. I'm so sorry. This entire video is just me rewriting the plot of The Last Jedi to be my own fanfiction. I'm so sorry. Also, by the way, when Rose collapses right after the kiss, I thought she was dead at first, and I was ready to literally fist fight Kathleen Kennedy. I was like, you kill Rose, I will never, ever forgive you. But she didn't die, so we're good. I've literally talked for over an hour. Hopefully the video isn't that long. So I'm gonna, right now, scroll past me things that I liked that I completely forgot to talk about because I was too busy rewriting the fucking Last Jedi. And over here, I'm gonna say things that I couldn't give two shits about that I forgot to talk about. Yeah. Oh yeah, Yoda. Yeah, it was good to see the old green bastard again, but I have no idea how I feel about that scene.
Actually, that goes into something I cannot finish this video without talking about. The very last scene with the children who met Finn and Rose. The idea that Finn and Rose inspired a group of enslaved children to hope for the future and to join the resistance is incredible, and the little glimpse we got of the child with clear force powers connects to the idea that people don't have to have a powerful lineage to have a connection to the force, and that a new generation of Jedi can rise under a new understanding of the force that Rey, the scavenger who is anything but nothing, can bring. That's why Luke says he won't be the last Jedi, and that's why Yoda destroys the tree, but we see later that Rey snuck the books out. Rey represents a new type of Jedi, taking what is necessary from the past, but leaving the myth behind. So what are my actual final thoughts on The Last Jedi? I think for what it was a good movie. There was some fumbling of a couple plot lines, but the only true, wow, this is wrong moment was Luke attempting to kill his nephew, which they did their best to justify. Do I think The Last Jedi could have been a better movie if they chose to prioritize just a little bit more Finn's storyline potential instead of spending most of the movie hyper-developing Kylo Ren? Yes, but honestly, I don't think we need to strike The Last Jedi from the canon. Let's be critical and have fun with it. Also, I never talked about Carrie Fisher because I can't do that without crying, but I love Carrie Fisher and every second she was on screen I was in agony and I truly cannot fathom that she will not be in the final movie of the trilogy. Okay, I'm gonna go sob over Star Wars now and regret this entire video. Feel free to fight with me in the comments if you want. I made this long-ass video because I love Star Wars, okay? So I'm always down to talk more about it. Until the next time I cry over my own fanfic, may the Force be with you.
In case anyone wants to say I'm not a real fan, because I don't know all of the terms for the different things and ships and stuff in Star Wars, listen, my memory is very bad, but I have lots of emotions.